Dennis Rader was a son, father, brother, Boy Scout troop leader. He was known as rule follower and very intelligent. On the outside, Dennis Rader looked like a normal human being, but little did everyone know he was a serial killer on the inside. From 1974 to 2005, Dennis Rader taunted the police with his brutal killing spree, attacking his victims one by one. He would bind, torture, and kill in this frame of time. After every one of his killings, he taunted the police with letters and demanded the title BTK, striking the fears of the minds of the public. But what drove Dennis, to otherwise seemingly normal man, to these mad killing sprees? To introduce our theory, we flash back to the 18th century, where Cesar Beccaria created what is known as the classical school of crime. The school emphasizes free will, accountability, responsibility, and punishment to deter others from committing crimes. Beccaria school of thought is based on the idea that criminals make conscious, reasoned decisions to commit crimes and weigh their options in order to obtain maximum pleasure and minimum pain. This was essentially judging the satisfaction of a crime against its possible punishment. If the satisfaction exceeds the consequence, then something is gained and a crime is committed. Dennis Rader, even at the young age, was known to have expressed an interest in bondage and abuse, which eventually turned into his own satisfaction. Although we can say that he had suppressed those thoughts for many years in an attempt to live a normal life, he couldn't bear the desires. They were much too strong. And satisfaction of committing his own crimes outweighed the fear of the potential repercussion. The biological theory of his crimes were based on individual physical traits. The theory of the creator, Cesar Lombroso, was believed that one could tell an individual's intention to commit crimes based on certain traits, such as the distance of one's eyes, shape of face, and certain places of the first person's definition. Although not too commonly displayed in BTK, Sigmund Freud helps us to understand the animal-like brain responsibility for unconscious drives like food or sex. And its main goal is instant gratification. The ego is part of the brain that counters the ID and one action with the individual principle of society's boundaries. And the last, the superegos, is the part that mediates between the pure gratification of the ID and strict morality of the ID and its reach to satisfaction of moral standards in an individual's community. One can assume those who commit crimes have a weak ego or an undeveloped superego. This could stem from an unhappy childhood, a lack of nurturing and love, or traumatic events. In the sociological aspect, one could say Dennis Rader had an undeveloped ego and superego. He commit crimes to fulfill his desires, undermining the consequences, all for his desire to instant gratification. Since childhood, Rader had particularly dark desires towards sexual experiences and death, admitting to having killed cats, dogs, for sport. When he was young, all of these desires were deemed appropriate and he learned to suppress them. He had struggles with those innate impulses, and that repressed and personality led to his psychological conflict and eventually his crime. The final theory that sociological explanations can be broken down into three categories: strained, controlled, and social learning theories. These theories take into consideration the individual's background, socio-economical status, and their ability to deal with the process hardship.
Hey Dennis, the boss is looking for you. He said to meet him in his office.
What do you want?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's nothing bad.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Many believe weak rules are the reason for crime. Others would blame social status and the disadvantages of the poor. For Dennis Rader, the theory that would most closely represent him is the strain theory. The strain theory is produced by those who fail to achieve goals and states that those who cannot cope with the negative emotions may be predisposed to committing crimes. Rader had learned to blend in with this community. He was eventually heavily involved in his church, but lived many years of his life suppressing his dark and sexual nature.
Hey Dennis. Hey. I don't know how to say this, but I'm gonna have to let you go.
What?
Your performance hasn't been the same lately. Yeah, I'm just sorry. Go get your things. Sorry, Dennis.
Bye.
In accordance with the strain theory, negative emotions are eventually expressed through crime and delinquency, and that is exactly what happened to Dennis. Although it is difficult to gather the rationality of any killing spree, we offer that many classifications that individuals may fit under to help us connect the dots. To recap, we have discussed the classical, the choice of free will, the biological, based on the physical trait, the physiological, based on the nature of the mind, the sociological, the effects of an individual's background and socioeconomic status. After reviewing, we decided that Dennis Rader displayed the characteristic necessary to fit 3 of these categories, potentially explaining his violent killings, and BTK still resides in prison today. After pleading guilty to the murders and currently serving a 10-life sentence in Kansas maximum security prison in El Dorado.